You are listening to Talking Star Wars.
Hello, Star Wars fans. I'm Alex,
And I'm Connor,
and today we're going to talk about Star Wars.
like we normally do.
You are listening to episode 86 Interesting Minor and Background Characters in Star Wars.
I think one of the things that's most synonymous with Star Wars is the crazy alien worlds that each one builds. Just with the different creatures, the different sort of inhabitants of each locale, starting from the cantina scene in A New Hope, and going through, we have Yoda, we have Ewoks, and then the prequels where practical and digital aliens alike flooded many scenes.
And there's also a theme of Star Wars, somewhat infamous even, that every minor character you see probably has a name, a deep backstory, some rich lore that it's never even hinted at on the screen, but that you might need to know at some point, or could know. There's even a meme about this that's been popular the last few years. It's like there's a character called Glup Shito, and people are like, "Who's the Glup Shito of this media?" So it's a whole meme, even that Star Wars has lore and names for even the most minorly glimpsed of background characters. So what we're gonna do on this episode is we're gonna look at a few interesting background characters, a few serious, like they appear in the minor role, but they're actually important in other media, and here's why. And some that are funny that they have such a detailed background for such an unimportant character that's not even hinted at. And some will be both.
So yeah, let's take a look at just a handful that stick out to our memory. So one of the most recent ones is from Skeleton Crew, where we have this one scene character who is in is it a bathhouse, or he's in some sort
It's,
of hot tub,
yeah, in a
correct?
sauna.
Yeah.
Cathalops, the sauna uh, connoisseur.
He's a lover of stories, and he appears as this giant, frightening, intimidating creature. But really, he's more than enamored with the story that the children tell him. So a little bit on the absurd side, uh, definitely on the humorous side. We don't know anything about him yet, but Star Wars likes to bring back characters who are memorable, like your Babu Fricks, who appear in Rise of Skywalker and are popular enough that the species appears in The Mandalorian, which is canonically earlier, released later, but just because of their positive prominence, they're brought back. So I think Cthulhups,
Cathalops.
I think Cathalops is going to be joining us again at some point.
Yeah, so this Lovecraftian squid-like beak-mouthed entity being just a jovial teller, listener to tales, and one of the positive and well-meaning adults that our child protagonists from Skeleton Crew meet on their journeys.
So yeah, that's I guess two mentions between Cathalops and Babu Frick. But Alex, what's one from I guess recent Star Wars that sticks out to mind for you?
So from recent Star Wars, so one interesting one, on a more serious note, would be Enoch, the captain of the guard for Thrawn's um, stormtrooper force in Ahsoka. He's got this gold mask on, a unique voice, sort of a presence. We know nothing about him other than he is loyal to Thrawn. But breaking the mold, where formerly stormtroopers had this sort of faceless lack of individuality, now Thrawn has forced them to embrace these individual identities as a survival mechanism, stranded for decades in a hostile environment, or at least a decade.
Very much what Phasma could have been, and we've talked about Phasma before in our media surveys. Uh, but I think that Phasma was promoted too much, and we thought, oh, this is our next Boba Fett, when really she was just our precursor to Enoch. She is an individual stormtrooper, and with her own set of armor, it makes her stand out. So Enoch very much has that same presence where we haven't seen a stormtrooper with a face in his armor. We haven't, most helmets in Star Wars, take away facial features. They serve as a blank mask, but this is evoking a face intentionally. So it's makes for a very interesting design.
Let's talk about Phasma as a minor character, because she really is. She
Mhm.
appears in 2 movies and a handful of scenes, like kind of like Boba Fett. But she's an example of what one Star Wars released a bunch of tie-in media about Phasma. Well, by a bunch I mean the one graphic novel and one novel, but they're dark, brooding, like very unique Star Wars stories. Phasma's from this post-apocalyptic planet, abandoned after a mining disaster. And she's the antagonist of her own namesake novel, where she eventually turns on the main character for power and money, and assassinates her boss. So, but it's like this gritty and grueling world that's slowly dying in this Star Wars universe, very post-apocalyptic. And then we brought none of that over to her actual depiction.
I mean,
So
she's ruthless, but we wouldn't get any hint of how deep that ruthlessness goes without knowing what happens in her extended media.
So, an example of sort of a semi-main character who's gone through the minor character treatment. Some other minor characters that come to mind in the villainous sense. There is Masamida. You will recognize him as the blue-horned fellow that sort of follows Palpatine around. He has a couple of lines, calls for order in the Senate, but he actually ends up in the expanded media being an important character. Masamida is the most senior member of the Empire left on Coruscant during the immediate post-Endor, pre-Battle of Jakku era. So he's holed up in the palace, trying not to be torn apart by the mobs outside, but having no real power, being asked to capitulate by the New Republic, but actually capitulate, not just like he wants himself to get out of there, but he has no power to actually compel the forces under his command in air quotes to do anything. So you get this bureaucratic functionary who knew who Palpatine was. He was one of the few people that was privy to Darth Sidious's real identity, uh, existing as this figure negotiating with Mon Mothma for the imperial surrender of Coruscant, leading up to the Battle of Jakku.
Yeah, and he is kind of a lifer, like a long-term Congress member because he was in office when Valorum, the Chancellor before Palpatine, was in power. So just serves as this interesting visual representation of the demonic forces that are in office for so long.
Well, interesting because one of the things Palpatine railed against inside the Republic government to get elected was the reign of the unelected bureaucrat, while employing Masamida as an unelected bureaucrat to handle the day-to-day functions of the Republic and later Empire that he couldn't be bothered with.
Mhm. And becoming, a lifelong bureaucrat as emperor. Um,
Uh, he autocrat. If you're an emperor, you get the type autocrat. Bureaucrat implies you're part of the system, not
sure,
controlling the system.
you get a little promotion there. Yeah. Uh, here's moving a little further, or moving in that prequel territory. Did you know that Quinlan Voss is in Phantom Menace?
Very briefly, he appears in the parade scene, doesn't he? Or is he in the council scene?
He's at one of the cantinas. It's not, or just in one of the outside shops on Tatooine. When he's simply just a background character, while Qui Gon and I don't know exactly what's going on in the scene, but uh, I'm not sure what came first, chicken or egg. I don't know if someone saw that design and was like, "Oh, that would make for an interesting Jedi," or if the idea of Quinlan Voss was floating around of, "Oh, this Jedi with a yellow band across his face," and he somehow ended up on set. I imagine that someone saw him on set, kept the sketch, and later included him in some, I imagine, comic book, which is, I'm guessing that's where Quinlan Voss first appeared.
He first appeared in that episode of the Clone Wars.
I thought he was around before then in media. But regardless, someone found that design from Phantom Menace and thought that would make for an interesting Jedi. But what he was doing on Tatooine, we will never know. Was he, looking out for the supposed chosen one? Was he on some sort of sabbatical? Um, it's not often when Jedi find themselves on Tatooine, um, which I guess is false. Many Jedi have actually been on Tatooine. Um,
So his first canonical appearance is Episode One, The Phantom Menace,
yeah, there we go. It's
and then
official.
he appears in the Brotherhood novel, which takes place after Phantom Menace. It is about Obi-Wan and Anakin and Qui-Gon. Um, yes, but then it was after that was in the Jedi Crash episode of the Clone Wars.
Okay.
So, and then he appeared in a few other minor things, but then Dark Disciple was his big break.
And he's gone on to be mentioned in Kenobi as well. But what other prequel characters stand out as just interesting background fodder?
Oh, there is the remind me of her name, the bounty hunter that
Aura Singh,
no Jango Fett uses.
Zam Wessel.
Yes, there's Zam Wessel. Did you know her name was Zam Wessel? Probably not. The changeling that Jango Fett hired to assassinate Padme. And of course, there's the whole theory that did he actually mean for the assassin? Because our chain of assassination custody goes Newt Gunray tells Dooku to assassinate Padme Amidala as a price of his loyalty. So Count Dooku knows that he has this bounty hunter on hand for his clone army that he obtained. He manipulated a friend of his into ordering, decades ago. Tells that bounty hunter to take care of Padme. Django then hires Zam Wessel as his subcontractor. Zam Wessel then programs a droid, and inside that droid plants poison bugs. So it goes Bugs, Droid, Wessel, Django, Dooku, Gunray. So instead of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, we're playing 6 degrees of Newt Gunray.
And it results in Zam Wessel, who is a shape changer. That's the only reason why I know her name is because any toy that had a removable mask I thought was neat. So both her 12-inch and 3 3/4 inch came with removable faces. You'd think that she would use that ability to get away. She unfortunately did not, for her sake.
Tried to, and of course, I am sympathetic to the idea posited by many fans that we never see Jango Fett use a Camino saber dart ever again, but he deliberately killed his subcontractor who attempted to kill a senator in front of 2 Jedi after standing dramatically in distinctive armor on a rooftop. Killed her with a dart that could be traced back to this planet that Palpatine desperately needed the Jedi to find and take advantage of for the war he was about to start. So there's some people who think that that's why it was Sidious who ordered Darth Tyrannus to make sure that Jango Fett was seen as trying to assassinate Padme. I think if he had been successful with the assassination, they were also fine. The failure of the assassination was not planned, but Jango being able to be identified as the target leading back. Because ultimately, at this point, Jango is just a loose end for Sidious and Tyrannus. The Kaminoans obviously want to keep him around, and Dooku finds him a useful tool. But Sidious is fine if we get a few less people who know anything about his plans out of the game here.
Speaking of Camino Saber Dart, shout out to Dexter Jetster,
Who was another minor character?
who appears in one scene but is surely memorable. Attack of the Clones is filled with memorable characters. We have uh, uh, the one alien at the bar who wants to deal Kenobi death sticks. Um, so many different Jedi in the arena scene at the end. I think that film is rife with, as you know, uh, interesting, noteworthy side characters.
To linger on Dexter for a little bit,
Mhm.
he has a very large presence in Expanded Media. Not very large, but we see his original meeting with Obi-Wan in the novel Padawan, where he's a minor still at the time, before he became an information broker. And he appears in various short stories and other novels as a key contact for Obi-Wan. And his short story is even after the fall of the Empire, where he stops some stormtroopers from being murdered by a mob because he doesn't want the New Republic to start off with mob justice. So he helps the stormtrooper escape mob justice. And then I haven't read it yet, but it appears to be a main character of Phase 3 of the High Republic's Adventures comic series. So, which is probably back in his as a Besalisk, he lives a long time. So,
Yeah, interesting. I'm now picturing a world where Dexter was introduced in lieu of Jar Jar Binks as the first digital supporting character in Star Wars, and wondering how that would have fared. there's just something about him and his lumbering, slouchy nature that I quite enjoy, along with his mustache. Um, did you know he had a mustache? Go back and watch that scene. There's so much texture going on in his face, you might have missed it.
Well, Ponkrell didn't have a mustache
Mhm.
and was evil. Dexter Jetster had a mustache and was not evil. Therefore, we can only assume that it's mustachioed Besalisks
Mhm.
that are good.
Mhm. Very fair. So, going back to the original trilogy, um, one character that always stood out to me was Lobot, and I don't know anything else about this individual, but it's Lando's handyman with some sort of mechanical apparatus on his head.
Would you like the deep cut lore about Lobot, Connor?
Yes,
Because
let's
there's
hear.
deep cut lore about Lobot.
What are we missing?
Okay, so Lobot is one of Lando's best friends. Was one of his fellow con artists with him. They did jobs together. Lobot formerly worked for the Empire, and so he had this grafted mechanical augment onto his brainstem. Because it was Imperial, it had the chance to sort of like take over someone, which was we see this also in an episode of Rebels where there's a Rhodian friend of Ezra's family whose mind is just fried by the implant he was forced to wear. So Lobot has the same type of implant. So obviously he doesn't want to work for the Empire that grafted this onto him. Um, but with that, he's an entirely normal dude, laughing, joking. They're but they end up in this job that goes bad, and Lobot is critically hurt, and that leaves him unable to stop the um, implant from taking over more of his neural functions. And so he's still in there, but he can't emote or speak very well because he's just controlled by the implant. So Lobot is still in there, the personality, but his body is mostly controlled by the implant at this time. There's even a whole plot in the recent Marvel or the recent comic series where Lando's goal after joining the rebellion is to find a cure for Lobot.
Hmm.
And he even finds an ancient droid that is able to do this. It's like from this droid cult, but ends up they also end up using the droid for something else for the rebellion, and almost causes a falling out. But yes, Lobot is like a charismatic jokester when he is not being controlled by his uh, imperial implant.
Very interesting. Little Jekyll and Hyde, little Incredible Hulk esque with the ultra personality. Um,
But also shows why he hates the Empire. Whereas
mhm,
Orlando's like, go. He's like, oh yeah, I already got my guys ready to go. We're gonna take out all these Imperials.
mhm. So for again, just to show just a sliver of screen time can turn into just a very interesting reflection in the expanded universe. Um, Another original trilogy character that I doubt has as much rich backstory, but you might surprise me, is one Salacious B. Crumb.
Do you need the deep cut lore on Salacious B. Crumb?
If there is deep cut lore, I think the fans deserve it.
All right, so Salacious B. Crumb is the um, Kaluuyan monkey that is the pet of Jabba the Hutt.
Mhm.
Salacious Crumb is more intelligent than he appears, but we get most of the information about him from the tiny intelligent mote, the lugubrious mote that lives on Salacious Crumb.
Of course.
And according to the deep cut lore, lugubrious mote makes friends with Leia while she's captured and helps her escape.
Hmm. So is Salacious Crumb knowledgeable of this moat?
He is, and he mocks him all the time for being so small.
And when Salacious himself is
Oh,
a
no,
diminutive beast.
and no, I think actually he's not intelligent enough to realize that the moat is alive. So Lugubrious is able to pass off his own words as Salacious's inner monologue by whispering in his ear. But he's not intelligent enough to handle the more sophisticated commands.
So in a way similar to Lobot, there are alien commands trying to infect this individual's mind and control him.
I guess I got the deep cut lore for you there.
Yeah. So those are the characters that stand out to me, and it looks like they must have stood out to other creators because they've done wonderful things with them. But as far as original trilogy characters come, what are some side ones that stand out to you?
General Dodonna, who is the general that gives the presentation for the attack on the Death Star. He appears in one scene, gives the briefing, and then he sort of stands around the hollow table during the attack. And he never shows up again.
Hmm.
The expanded universe is that he is. There's a plot in between episodes 4 and 5 for the Republic to get a bunch of new frigates, but they are or a bunch of new ships, but they're manipulated by the arms dealer providing the frigates, and then Vader uses this as a way to destroy as much of the rebellion as he can. And Dodonna was captain of one of those ships that was blown up by Vader.
Ooh, well, that's something I could see if you know, if anyone, God forbid, went back and remade Star Wars. I can see that character meeting his demise off screen, or sorry, meeting his demise on screen, just for the sake of continuity. Like uh, General Panaka disappeared and was replaced by another guard for Padme.
Oh, we got to give the deep cut lore in Panaka. You want
Sure.
the deep cut
Oh,
lore in
yeah.
Panaka?
We're here.
All right. So Captain Panaka, captain of the guard for Padme Amidala when she is queen. When she becomes senator, Panaka, um, they don't always see eye to eye. Panaka was always more of a militaristic person, and he's very close personal friends with the senator of Naboo, one um, Sheev Palpatine. So when Palpatine gets more prominent, Panaka remains a prominent security voice on Naboo, but is no longer directly in service of Padme. His cousin Tycho then takes over. But eventually, Panaka then becomes Moff Panaka as a reward for his loyalty when Palpatine becomes Emperor. He is, in fact, the Moff of Naboo and its surrounding sector. This is in the novel Leia, Princess of Alderaan, where Leia visits Naboo on a mission and meets Moff Panaka, and then she's like, get dressed, and he's like, oh, so she gets dressed in a traditional Naboo dress, and Panaka realizes that this must be the child that Padme was pregnant with when she died, because of the similarity, the resemblance is so striking, and he is about to potentially alert Palpatine as Leia, not knowing what's going on, but realizing that Panaka's realized something, is going back to her ship. But Panaka is a Moff, and so when Saw Gerrera is attempting to murder Moffs in the area, Panaka was at the top of his list. So Leia narrowly leaves his mansion before Saw Gerrera's partisans blow the whole thing up with everyone inside.
Wow.
Killing Panaka before he can reveal Leia's identity, and nearly killing Leia in the process, because that's just how Saw Gerrera rolls, with maximum ineffective violence.
And see, this is, just what I love about Star Wars, because it not only concludes this side character story, but it ties in other elements. We're tying in old trilogy elements with Leia. We're tying in new Disney universe with Saw Gerrera, and just kind of filling out the full canvas of what has happened in this universe. So, never knew that, and find it fascinating. But
Well, I think an area we have to talk about, if we're going to talk about minor characters, Connor, is every single bounty hunter that appears in that one scene in episode 5.
oh yeah.
So Boba Fett being the most prominent, but give me the list, Connor. Who you got?
Let's see. We have IG-88.
Uh-huh.
We have Bosk.
Yep.
Dengar.
Yep.
And then I believe Zusk and Forlom.
Correct.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, I got 100% there.
And each one just has a very colorful, interesting backstory. Like I'm fairly sure that Forlom, even though he's might be an independent droid, works with, if not for, Zuckusk, the bug-looking one.
Yes, they are partners. Though each of them at some point tries to betray the other, but they always. Forlom at one point is hacked and tries to kill Zusk. Zusk takes it personally.
Mm-hmm.
Zusk is force sensitive. He's a Gand wayfinder, so he's able to track people, but it's unlike the Jedi enough that it flies under the radar as far as that, because all it is about sensing where people are.
Interesting.
So it's a gift of his species, so it sort of flies under the radar, because Gand are not supposed to leave their home society, and Zusk did, which is why he is occasionally has crippling self-doubt. Bosk is a Trandoshan, introduced the Trandoshans to Star Wars. Then we have Dengar, who just wears this. Everyone finds his turban upsetting.
Yeah,
Um,
in universe and out of universe, um, kind of is one of many foster parents to Boba Fett in expanded media. I think you'd tie in Aura Singh and Cad Bane in that as well. Um, and then IG-88 is just, I think, next to Chopper when it comes to the deadliest droids in the universe.
yeah, we don't see him do a whole lot actually in it. We get IG-11 doing more
Mhm.
work in the same droid series, but IG-88, one of that series of droid. There's one canon where he uploaded himself to the Death Star 2 super laser in Legends canon because Legends got crazy, Connor,
Sentient Death Star laser. That's what we're missing from canon
because
right
he wanted to
now.
kill as many people as possible.
Mhm. You know, that's his lot in life. He's a bounty hunter, so all for it. Good for him. But yeah, just one scene with so many colorful characters in it, and that's what Star Wars does best. It establishes personality and attitude just within costuming alone.
So let's talk about the sequel trilogy, Connor, because while it is a bit less rich, I will agree, there are still background characters present that do have impact from the sequel trilogy.
Oh yeah,
So name someone that interests you.
each film is rife with different creatures, and it's a return to the fully practical. Although we do have CG enhancements in creatures here and there, I know that within the visual dictionary there are some beings who, like Lobot, have artificial intelligence, but the entire top half of their head is mechanical, upsettingly so, and then they just have a human mouth left. I'll have to find their name at some point, but
Those are the
it's deeply,
decanted,
deeply upsetting.
which is yeah by a you can't really call them a serial killer because they aren't technically dead,
Mhm.
but yes, by a serial mutilator, which is actually from another minor character because those operations are performed by the guy who's the doctor that Obi-Wan's arm he cuts off his arm in the cantina. The fact that he has a death penalty is because he's a mad scientist doctor that likes to experiment on people.
Ew, ew, not Ponda Baba, but his friend.
Yeah, so that's his best friend who just enables him.
Hmm.
Dr. Cornelius Evazan, who
There
ends
you
up
go.
being a main antagonist in the Dr. Aphra series, is the guy that Obi-Wan cuts his arm off for trying to threaten Luke. He turns out to be sort of a serial killer and a mad scientist. He's the one who made the decanted by cutting people's heads mostly off and replacing them with droids
Ew.
just because he could.
Yeah.
They're still aware of everything that's going on.
Hmm.
And as we can see, what's the guy's name from the leader of the Crimson Dawn? Dryden. Yeah,
Dryden Voss, yeah.
Dryden Voss enjoys using them as a flex of powers. Leader of the Crimson Dawn. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, deeply unsettling. That stands out to mind within the sequel trilogy. But the Knights of Ren, even though they're underutilized, strike a presence. Um,
do you want the deep cut lore on the Knights of Ren?
I know that enough. I know that they're a sect of Force user that existed for years, even alongside the Sith,
Yeah,
isolated.
they call the dark side the shadow. They only induct force sensitive members into it, but they're all like minor, like hedge mage levels of force sensitive,
Mhm.
and so they never threaten the Sith or claim the Sith title. So they're kind of allowed to do their own thing. But they have a single red lightsaber they pass around, which is called the Ren, which is one reason how they get their name.
Yeah, and Kylo inherits it, and
That's what he makes his lightsaber out of.
yeah. So I know there's external lore on that. In the movies, we get them featured heavily in one film, in Rise of Skywalker. Um, and again, each are just interesting, dark, sort of bastardization of Darth Vader in terms of appearance. But how about you, Alex? Any notable sequel trilogy characters?
Hmm. Not sure he qualifies as interesting, but there's General Pride, who is the leader of the First Order in Rise of Skywalker. He gets a bunch of appearances in novels like Shadows of the Sith and other, where he's just this racist former Imperial that then eventually rises to whose fanatical loyalty rises to become a general. We just see his utter distaste for aliens and conviction that he's the best. So we get backstory for him. As far as really interesting characters, I mean, I'm trying to think of any that don't qualify as main characters.
Mm-hmm.
Maz Kanata comes back too much to be considered a minor character.
The creature that Luke milks in Last Jedi doesn't have any lines, but neither did Lobot. I wouldn't consider them unnecessarily a character, though, but a creature that stands out, unfortunately so.
Yeah, and then I mean, you'd think there would be someone from like Canto Bight that would have an interesting backstory, but nope, they did all the work to build characters before the movie, and then didn't return to Canto Bight afterwards.
Mm-hmm. For now, we'll see if they ever make that decision
Yeah.
again.
Oh, the pair of lesbian pilots, or the lesbian pilot, lesbian mechanic, they're in a relationship in the Rise of Skywalker. They do get names and unique models and voices in the Lego Star Wars game.
Interesting.
Um,
So one lady with a face, that's all I know.
yeah, yeah. So even though their scenes were cut out in markets where being gay was not as appropriate because Disney are cowards,
Yes.
but does not sure it counts as deep cut lore that they got unique Lego Star Wars figurines.
And that's got to be the the true sign of establishment in the Star Wars universe. If you're included as a minifigure in the Lego game, you've made it.
Or they really needed another C-3PO unit.
Very true.
Protocol droid.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, when it comes to background characters, are there any other that come to mind, or any final words on the topic?
Black Chrysanthemum is
Ooh,
someone
yeah.
he appears in the Book of Boba Fett. I really enjoy him. Was a main character and sidekick of Dr. Aphra, and a bounty hunter. So rich lore, and that he goes from side media into appearing in main visual media in the Book of Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm. Everybody loves a Wookiee.
Yeah, I think we can play. There's way more side characters that we could review. We could delve into like video games and comics, but I think just with these few examples, you can see how Star Wars likes making things connected and giving a backstory to all of these minor characters. At its worst, this makes the universe feel very small and like everyone's in the same 13 parsecs of each other. At its very best, this adds context and connection to the stories that exist and makes the universe feel alive and breathing, and that even minor characters have a full and rich life and story if only you will tap it.
Yeah, and Star Wars does this well when, let's say in Solo they mention the character Bosk, instead of flat out mentioning Boba Fett. Oh, everybody, can associate Han Solo and Boba Fett. No, it's just this other bounty hunter that you may know if you've seen these movies. So when it's done well, it helps to add these additional pieces of texture to these characters.
Yeah, so if you have any thoughts about great background characters, either in a video game, in a piece of media we didn't mention, feel free to comment on this video or go to our subreddit, reddit.com/r/talking Star Wars. Would love to hear your thoughts.
Until then, we'll see you sometime soon in a galaxy right here.